Hi, grade 3. So the grade 3 teachers decided that we were going to post some videos of read-alongs, just like the ones that we have done in class. And I decided that I was going to read aloud the Tale of Despereaux, which is a book that I started with Madame Anne's grade 3 class, and we got about halfway through, but we didn't have a chance to finish it. And we were all really loving this story. So I'm going to start it again from the beginning, and so all the grade 3s can hear it, and so that Madame Anne's class can go back and start again from the beginning, because it's been a little while since we've had a chance to read together. And the Tale of Despereaux is an amazing fantasy story about a little mouse who wants to save a beautiful princess. If you have a copy of the book at home, feel free to follow along with me. And if you don't, that is more than okay. I always tell my students that when you're listening to a story, you can close your eyes and you can let the words paint a picture in your mind. So you can feel free to listen to it like that. If you have other family members, brothers and sisters who maybe want to listen to a story, then it's always good to listen to stories together. And then at the end of when we read, I'm going to ask you a few questions that you can discuss with your family. You can put it in a Google Doc and send it to me, or you can just talk out loud with whoever it is that's listening to the story with you. So every few days I'm going to post a video with me reading a part of the Tale of Despereaux. The chapters are quite short in this book, so I'll probably read a few chapters at a time, and then you can either go forward or go back, or you can re-listen to them as you would like. All right, so the Tale of Despereaux. I'm going to zoom in on the title, or on the cover, and you can see the illustration. It's a book that is written by Kate DiCamillo. So I would like you to make a prediction before we start, in Madame Anne's class will already be able to do this because they were halfway through, of what you think this book is going to be about. All right, let's begin. The Tale of Despereaux. The Tale of Despereaux being the story of a mouse, a princess, some soup, and a spool of thread. The world is dark and light is precious. Come closer, dear reader. You must trust me. I am telling you a story. Oh, I forgot to mention that this book is divided into 4 sections, 4 stories, and each of the sections of the book is told from the perspective of a different character. So in book 1, the character that is telling the story is Despereaux. Book 1, the first, a mouse is born. Chapter 1. This story begins within the walls of a castle with the birth of a mouse, a small mouse. The last mouse born to his parents and the only one of his litter to be born alive. "Where are my babies?" said the exhausted mother when the ordeal was through. "Show me my babies." The father held up the one small mouse way up high. "There is only this one," he said. The others did not make it. "Mon Dieu! Just one baby mouse?" "Just the one. What will you name him?" "All that work," said mother. She sighed. "It is so sad. It is such a disappointment." She was a French mouse who had arrived at the castle long ago in the luggage of a visiting French diplomat. Disappointment was one of her favorite words. She used it often. "Will you name him?" repeated the father. "Will I name him? Will I name him? Of course I will name him. But he will only die like the others. Oh, sad, such a tragedy." The mouse mother held a handkerchief to her nose and then waved it in front of her face. She sniffed. "I will name him. Yes, I will name this mouse Despereaux. For all the sadness, for all the despair in this place, now where is my mirror? Her husband handed her a small shard of mirror. The mouse mother, whose name was Antoinette, looked at her reflection and gasped out loud. Toulouse, she said with one of her sons, get me my makeup bag. My eyes are a fright. While Antoinette touched up her eye makeup, the father put Despereaux down on a bed made of blanket scraps. The April sun, weak but determined, shone through the castle window, and from there squeezed itself into a small hole in the wall and placed one golden finger on the little mouse. The other older mice children gathered around to stare at Despereaux. His ears are too big, said his sister Merlot. Those are the biggest ears I've ever seen. Look, said his brother named Furlough. His eyes are open. Pa, his eyes are open. They shouldn't be open. It is true. Despereaux's eyes should not have been open, but they were. He was staring at the sun reflecting off his mother's mirror. The light was shining onto the ceiling in an oval of brilliance, and he was smiling up at the sight. There's something wrong with him, said the father. Leave him alone. Despereaux's brothers and sisters stepped back away from the new mouse. This is the last, proclaimed Antoinette from her bed. I shall have no more mice babies. They are such a disappointment. They are hard on my beauty. They ruin me and my looks. This is the last one. No more. The last one, said father. He'll be dead soon. He can't live, not with his eyes open like that. But reader, he did live, and this is his story. Chapter 2, such a disappointment. Despereaux Tilling lived, but his existence was such a cause for speculation in the mouse community. He's the smallest mouse I've ever seen, said his Aunt Florence. It's ridiculous. No mouse has ever been this small, not even a Tilling. She looked at Despereaux through narrowed eyes, as if she expected him to disappear entirely. No mouse, she said again, never. Despereaux, his tail wrapped around his feet, stared back at her. Those are some big ears he's got too, observed his Uncle Alfred. They look more like donkey ears, if you ask me. They are obscenely large, said Aunt Florence. Despereaux wiggled his ears. His Aunt Florence gasped. They say he was born with his eyes open, whispered Uncle Alfred. Despereaux stared hard at his uncle. Impossible, said Aunt Florence. No mouse, no matter how small or obscenely large-eared, is ever born with his eyes open. It simply isn't done. His pa, Lester, says he's not well, said Uncle Alfred. Despereaux sneezed. He said nothing in defense of himself. How could he? Everything his aunt and uncle said was true. He was ridiculously small. His ears were obscenely large. He had been born with his eyes open, and he was sickly. He coughed and sneezed so often that he carried a handkerchief in one paw at all times. He ran temperatures. He fainted at loud noises. Most alarming of it all, he showed no interest in things a mouse should show interest in. He did not think constantly of food. He was not intent on tracking down every crumb. While his larger, older siblings ate, Despereaux stood with his head cocked to one side, holding very still. Do you hear that sweet sound? He said. I hear the sound of cake crumbs falling out of people's mouths and hitting the floor, said his brother Toulouse. That's what I hear. No, said Despereaux, it's something else. It sounds like honey. You might have big ears, said Toulouse, but they are not attached right to your brain. You don't hear honey, you smell honey. When there's honey to smell, which there isn't. Son, barked Despereaux's father, snap to it. Get your head out of the clouds and go hunt for some crumbs. Please, said his mother, go look for crumbs. Eat them to make your mama happy. You are such a skinny mouse. You are such a disappointment to your mama. Sorry, said Despereaux. He lowered his head and sniffed the castle floor. But reader, he was not smelling. He was listening with his big ears to the sweet sound that no other mouse seemed to hear. Chapter 3, Once Upon a Time. Despereaux's siblings tried to educate him in the ways of being a mouse. His brother Furlough took him on a tour of the castle to demonstrate the art of scurrying. Move side to side, instructed Furlough, scrambling across the waxed castle floor. Look over your shoulder all the time, first to the left, then to the right. Don't stop for anything. But Despereaux wasn't listening to Furlough. He was staring at the light pouring in through the stained glass windows of the castle. He stood on his hind legs, and he held his handkerchief over his heart, and he stared up, up, up into the brilliant light. Furlough, he said, what is that thing? What are all those colors? Are we in heaven? Oh man, said Furlough in the far corner, don't stand in the middle of the floor talking about heaven. Move! You're a mouse, not a man. You've got to scurry. What? Said Despereaux, still staring at the light. But Furlough was gone. He had, like a good mouse, disappeared into a hole in the molding. Despereaux's sister, Merlot, took him into the castle library, where the light streaming in through the tall high windows had landed on the floor in bright yellow patches. Here, said Merlot, follow me, small brother, and I will instruct you on the fine points of how to nibble paper. Merlot scurried up a chair, and from there hopped onto a table on which there was a huge open book. This way, small brother, she said, as she crawled onto the pages of the book, and Despereaux followed her from the chair to the table to the page. Now then, said Merlot, this glue here is tasty, and the paper edges are crunchy and yummy, like so. She nibbled the edge of a page and then looked over at Despereaux. You try, she said. First a bite of some glue, and then follow it with a crunch of paper. And these squiggles, very tasty. Despereaux looked down at the book, and something remarkable happened. The marks on the pages, the squiggles, as Merlot referred to them, arranged themselves into shapes. The shapes arranged themselves into words, and the words spelled out a delicious and wonderful phrase. Once upon a time. Once upon a time, whispered Despereaux. What? Said Merlot. Nothing. Eat, said Merlot. I couldn't possibly, said Despereaux, backing away from the book. Why? Said Despereaux, it would ruin the story. The story? What story? Merlot stared at him. A piece of paper trembled at the end of one of her indignant whiskers. It's just like Pa said when you were born. Something is not right with you. She turned and scurried from the library to tell her parents about this latest disappointment. Despereaux waited until she was gone, and then he reached out, with one paw, touched the lovely words, once upon a time. He shivered, he sneezed, he blew his nose into his handkerchief. Once upon a time, he said out loud, relishing the sound, and then tracing each word with his paw, he read the story of a beautiful princess and a brave knight who serves and honors her. Despereaux didn't know it, but he would need very soon to be brave himself. Have I mentioned that beneath the castle there is a dungeon, and in the dungeon there are rats, large, mean rats? Despereaux was destined to meet those rats. Reader, you must know that an interesting fate, sometimes involving rats, sometimes not, awaits almost everyone, mouse or man, who does not conform. Chapter 4, Enter the Pea. Despereaux's brothers and sisters soon abandoned the thankless task of trying to educate him in the ways of being a mouse, and so Despereaux was free. He spent the days as he wanted. He wandered through the rooms of the castle, staring dreamily at the light streaming in through the stained glass windows. He went to the library and read over and over again the story of the fair maiden and the knight who rescued her. And he discovered, finally, the source of the honey-sweet sound. That sound was music. The sound was King Philip playing his guitar and singing to his daughter, the Princess Pea, every night before she fell asleep. Hidden in the hole of the wall of the princess's bedroom, the mouse listened with all his heart. The sound of the king's music made Despereaux's soul grow large and light grow inside of him. "Oh," he said, "it sounds just like heaven. It smells like honey." He stuck his left ear out of the hole in the wall so that he could hear the music better. And then he stuck his right ear out so that he could hear better still. And it wasn't too long before one of his paws followed his head, and then another paw, and another, and without any real planning on Despereaux's part, the whole of him was on display in an effort to get closer to the music. Now, while Despereaux did not indulge in many of the normal behaviors of mice, he did adhere to one of the most basic and elemental rules. Do not ever, ever, under any circumstance, reveal yourself to a human. But the music made him lose his head and act against the few small mouse instincts that he was in possession of. And because of this, he revealed himself. And in no time at all, he was spied by the sharp-eyed Princess P. "Papa, look, a mouse." The king stopped singing. He squinted. The king was nearsighted. That is, anything that was not right in front of him was very difficult for him to see. "Where?" said the king. "There," said Princess P. She pointed. "That, my dear P, is a bug, not a mouse. It is much too small to be a mouse." "No, it's a mouse." "A bug," said the king, who liked to be right. "A mouse," said P, who knew that she was right. As for Despereaux, he was beginning to realize that he had made a very grave error. He trembled, he shook, he sneezed, he considered fainting. "He's frightened," said P. "Look, he's afraid, he's shaking. I think he was listening to the music. Play something, Papa." "A king play for a bug?" King Philip wrinkled his forehead. "Is that proper, do you think? Wouldn't that make this into some kind of topsy-turvy, wrong-headed world if a king played for a bug?" "Papa, I told you he's a mouse," said the P. "Please." "Oh, well, if it will make you happy, I, the king, will play music for a bug." "A mouse," corrected the P. The king adjusted his heavy gold crown. He cleared his throat. He strummed the guitar and started to sing a song about stardust. The song was as sweet as light shining through the stained glass windows, as captivating as the story in this book. Despereaux forgot all about his fear. He only wanted to hear the music. He crept closer and closer until, dear reader, he was sitting right on the foot of the king. We're going to end there.